If you're unfamiliar, the Renaissance was a movement that occurred within the 14th century of Europe and in the surrounding areas. The movement basically promoted the rediscovery and appreciation of things like classical art, writing, and classical philosophy. Now you don't have to click off the video yet, I promise. This is about Yu-Gi-Oh! I say this because, in a similar way, I'm sure members of the widespread Yu-Gi-Oh! Community have noticed the absolute uprising in talk of legacy format Yu-Gi-Oh! Most recently. Genuinely, a few years back, the only experiences I personally had with legacy Yu-Gi-Oh! Play existed within a few people at my locals playing GOAT here and there. I can only assume that the same was true of a lot of other players within their local communities for the past few years. Nowadays, it feels totally different throughout the community. From a local and a general level, I think it is inarguable to say that the push to play formats like GOAT, Edison, Plant, Dragon Ruler, etc., has risen to genuinely impressive new heights, specifically within the last year or two. So I see this movement, and personally I ask myself the question, why exactly is this? What has really been the core to this? What spurred this reinvention of how Yu-Gi-Oh! Is being played at both a casual and a competitive level nowadays? Today, I really want to discuss this rediscovery as we dive into this new age of old age Yu-Gi-Oh! First off, I think when we talk about this rise in retro Yu-Gi-Oh, I think we really do have to discuss the pandemic. I am of the personal belief that this retro uprising is certainly at least partially due to the recent COVID virus pandemic. With people stuck at home and the general prize support for standard Yu-Gi-Oh hardly existent, I think a lot of people really did have to pose themselves the question, is standard Yu-Gi-Oh the most fun I could be having right now? Now, I think this question was really pushed due to the quality of the early pandemic formats. I personally didn't find much enjoyment in playing Block Dragon format with my friends and casually, and with everyone really stuck at home, that was the majority of my opponents, and I'm sure a ton of other people had similar issues. I'm going to hypothesize that due to this lack of support by Konami and declining enjoyment with standard format Yu Gi Oh!, a lot of people decided to investigate other ways to play the game. After all, if the only way you're really experiencing Yu Gi Oh! At any given time is in a lax, friendly local environment, you might as well find the best format suited to that attitude, rather than simply abiding by and playing exactly what Konami is promoting and marketing at any given time, because that, though it is playable, isn't always the most fun, the best experience you could be having in terms of Yu-Gi-Oh! It really is evident to me the excitement for these older formats when you take a look at the way the Yu-Gi-Oh! Market has been behaving over the course of the pandemic. Now, I'm sure you've all seen the Plant buyouts, the Monarch buyouts, ultis in all of these past format cards. They're continuing to rise in price. Stimulus checks have clearly hit the collectors and the retro market hard, specifically. And the card pool has been getting bought out to oblivion over the past year or so. Now, I don't think this revived interest is in all part due to each individual standard player going back and re-examining their enjoyment of the standard game, though I do believe that has certainly been a part of the movement. Now, I think that honestly, a big reason the community has been reinvigorated with these retro Yu-Gi-Oh! Concepts is in part due to the development of the Progression series. Now, I know for sure that not all of you are going to be fans of Simo, and he certainly felt a fair amount of backlash for his content over the course of the pandemic. But credit where credit is due, Simo's Progression series has become honestly iconic within the community, and a really well-executed concept in my personal opinion. The idea of following two people diving into each set over the course of Yu-Gi-Oh's history is certainly a fun watch, and the approach has caught on and has seen many spin-off series as a result. With so many people revisiting these past sets of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Metagame in front of larger audiences, it's only really natural that people begin taking more interest in playing with the cards they continuously see given the spotlight week after week. Now, genuinely, I do believe that the progression content and series similar to it have most likely really contributed to this retro format interest, garnering a ton of views in terms of Yu-Gi-Oh! Content each week. And I think it's only natural to see upturns in retro format activity with that continued popularity. Now, obviously, Simo and his co hosts are absolutely not the only content creators on this retro wave. Another prominent figure within the Yu-Gi-Oh community, being Pack, has been vocal about his interest in retro formats like that of Plants more recently. Now, a few months back, even working with the luxury tournament organizers, they hosted a widely appreciated Plant format tournament. And it's not only the bigger names in YouTube that are promoting these tournaments and getting people interested. Other smaller YouTubers like that of Ed, and Edison have been preaching the Edison format to their viewer base, really sparking interest in that format amongst their audience for a previously pretty unknown retro format. MBT has actually done something similar to this recently, though it was definitely on a more simplified scale. He chose to start up a Discord and started hosting fairly large supported tournaments for the previously completely unplayed Reaper format. People are really giving new life to these older formats that they are passionate about, and it's really a great thing to see. And it's really cool to see these communities develop right in front of our eyes. It really does feel like every week these communities are growing, whether it's within the popular retro format hubs, being that like format library, or dedicated format Discord servers like Decade of Duels or the Reaper format Discord. It really is evident to me that there's a continually growing interest within the Yu-Gi-Oh community to play the game in different ways. And obviously, I absolutely love that that's becoming an option. It's truly great to see people breaking down the boundaries in terms of how you can play Yu-Gi-Oh at a larger tournament scale nowadays. With the community coming together like this and pooling within tons of different mini communities, it really does give tons of players, whether new or old, a great pool of options in terms of how they do get to play the game. And I think, honestly, for the community, that can only be a good thing. Yu-Gi-Oh should never be a game defined by how good or bad the most recent ban list and card pool is. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is an ever-evolving game, and the different time periods in which it has existed represent completely different ways in which the game is played. Now, depriving players who want to play in a certain era, a certain way the game was played at a certain time, simply due to lack of community support, has been a big shame in the past. It's really wonderful to see how many communities develop around passion to play these older formats, and continuously allow more and more players to play with a community who wants to play in the same way that they do. Now, I know I have preached this in the past quite a bit, but genuinely, I encourage everyone who enjoys Yu-Gi-Oh! In whatever shape or form to get out there within these communities and play some games in these formats that you've never played before. Personally, I've had a lot of fun in doing so. I've discovered a lot of cool decks I've never seen before, and I've gotten to meet some people, some really great people within these communities I never would have previously. It really is a great time. Now, before I end, I want to pose a question to the audience. Have you been a part of this movement? And if so, what drove you to be interested in these older formats? I'm really interested, as really all I can do here is hypothesize about the reasoning and what's occurred to really push people to these formats. Please let me know down below. I genuinely love to hear about your personal experiences with it. And until next time, I really hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you, and goodbye.